Welcome back, Nuggets. This Mother Clucker has got some thoughts. Let's ruffle some feathers and get into the video. And if you would like to support my baby chick of a channel, please consider liking and subscribing. And if you like this video, there's plenty more where this came from, so go check out my back catalogue. Okay, so two major things have happened in the world of Eugenia while I've been away. So although I am currently working on a Gypsy Rose video for you all, because you've all been asking, and yes, it's on its way, I just wanted to jump in and get back into the swing of things myself with this video. So the first thing that has happened, of course, if you're in the Eugenia world, you know her dog Buzz has passed away. And this is obviously hitting her quite hard. I'm going to be covering two streams today, and that is the 28th and 29th. This is her second last and last stream that she did before she disappeared without a word. And that brings us to the second thing that's happened, is that it is clear that Eugenia has been demonetized in some way, shape, or form on TikTok. I am not clear exactly the extent of it. She's not addressing it, which is not unlike her. You know, this is not the first time Eugenia has been hit financially by a platform and then disappears for a time. Either working through her emotions about that or waiting for it to come back. I'm not sure what the case is, but we can see on TikTok that you cannot subscribe to her anymore. I don't know if that means that she can't get gifts and things like that. It could be a staged demonetization or it could be a complete one. Given that these two things did happen quite close to each other, it is possible that she has stopped live streaming because she's working through her grief and maybe she felt like it was hitting her harder than she thought it would after attempting to return back. But let's have a look at some clips from the last two live streams. So the first live stream that I'm going to cover is actually the first live stream where she acknowledged that it was Buzz that had passed. And then of course the second one is the last live stream that she has put up. Since that point, she's been completely radio silent at time of recording. I am checking and hoping that TikTok doesn't mess me around this time like last time, but I'll put in a little editor's note in case that changes in the meantime. So let's go through the videos, and then I thought we could have a little chat about grief. Now, this is a super fun topic for me right now. If you haven't been following my chicken dramas, I've mentioned it in a couple of videos and I've put up some community posts as well about it. I have been caring for a very critically ill chicken for about 2 months, and that is Miss Pink. She is a very special girl. And although everything looked like it was going in a very positive direction and it looked like that we were going to win the battle, unfortunately, a week ago today, at time of recording, it just all got a little bit too much for her little body and she passed. But she was warm and loved and comfortable, and she passed in my husband's arms, which is kind of the most perfect way, I think, for her to go. So as you can imagine, we're talking about only a week that's passed, and this is still pretty fresh for me. Given the series of events, I just thought it would be a really good thing to talk about. This is something that affects a lot of people's lives, and some of you listening right now might even be going through this as we speak, or maybe you're anticipating going through it. So I thought I'd come and share my little bits of mother clucking wisdom and see if it can help anybody out there. So without further ado, let's get into the video.
I'm gonna at least come on and say hi to you guys and try to start, I guess, being online again. But I'm sure a lot of you guys already know my dog Buzz. You know, he's been with us a long time. We've had him for 13 years. And Monday night, I heard my mom and my family.
So it's pretty clear that she is badly affected by this. I don't think anything is fake for her right now. I do credit her for getting back online though, because at the end of the day, this is her job. And there does come a point in time, unfortunately, with the grieving process where normal routine and earning and just daily life has to start happening again. And it's a horrible feeling when you're in the middle of grief because it almost feels like things are just moving on without any acknowledgement for the the little being that has been lost. And that can be really, really difficult to reconcile in your head. But even more so for Eugenia, I will give her credit because her job is not just, you know, rocking up and doing some paperwork in an office by yourself. She is completely front facing to a point. She is expected to perform almost and to do her normal salesmanship and everything like that. And to be willing to face that does actually show an inner strength that I actually will confess to not thinking Eugenia had the capability of. So good for her in this moment. Was it too soon? Potentially, but at least she gave it a go.
Just like, you know, obviously really upset. And he's not with us anymore, unfortunately. It was like, you know, he was 13, he had an amazing life, and we loved him so much, you guys. It's very hard. It was like really kind of unexpected. Like, Buzz has been dealing with like some health problems, and we've been trying to like, you know, deal with that obviously privately and everything. And even just last week, he was just like seeing an internist, and they were telling us they were going to try to get him medication, you know, and that nothing was looking too bad. We were supposed to be waiting on his test. And then Monday night comes. It really is like losing family, Neil. It's seriously like, it's the hardest thing in the world.
And grief is one of those funny things, isn't it? It comes and manifests itself in such different ways for different individuals. And I don't think it matters if you were expecting it or if it was sudden. It doesn't make it easier. Maybe there's a little bit of solace to be found if someone or something had a good long life or even just a good life. And what Eugenia is describing here actually kind of parallels what I've just gone through as well, where you didn't think that it was going to happen, but then the decline comes, and the decline comes very rapidly, and really you're just strapped in for that ride at that point. So she's probably experiencing quite a bit of shock or almost a sense of surrealism in a way where she can't quite believe that it's happened, even though in the back of their minds, I'm sure they knew, you know, Buzz was a pug. Pugs are not known for their extended lives because of breeding issues and things like that. But ultimately, it wouldn't have made it. It wouldn't have made it much easier for them.
Anyone that ever loses like an animal or loses a pet or is going through anything like that, I'm seriously so sorry, you guys. Like, I don't know. It's all Kylie, thank you. I've been trying to stay strong, also for my family too. You know, it's just been, this week has just been so many tears and screaming, you know, in pain and everything. Erosa, thank you for the 2-month sub. I really appreciate you. But I don't know, everybody. It's just kind of been like, just like being here in my room. It's like, I don't know.
So this does sound like a family who is reacting quite strongly to this loss. And don't get me wrong, I do not have any form of criticism for that at all. It does make me wonder if there had been another pet or if there has been much loss in this family, because I know that the grandmother was a loss. But like anything else, you know, dealing with grief is unfortunately a skill set, and it's not a skill set that you necessarily want to get good at. I don't want to say you get used to it, but you get familiar with it, I think might be the best thing to say. And to be describing it as screaming in pain, and of course we're just getting this from Eugenia, we don't actually know if that's happening, but I could see it in this family from what we know. I could absolutely see that being the case. And this is in no word a criticism. Everybody grieves differently, and there's no right or wrong so long as the process is being moved through and not halted in any way. I'll describe what I mean about that a little bit later, but everybody does react differently. I actually used to work with a woman who had dogs, and I remember this particular afternoon, she just kind of looked a bit off, and I said, "Are you all right?" And she said, "My dog died. He was bitten by a snake." And of course, my reaction, because, you know, pets, animals are absolutely family to me. So my reaction is, of course, "Oh my gosh, you know, that's horrible." And she goes, "It's all right." And I'm just like, is it? Is it all right? Okay. I don't know. She didn't seem to miss a step, but of course she could have been doing her thing behind the scenes, but everybody reacts differently is my point. And one thing I will say, at the end she says, you know, just being in my room, and I think that there is nothing better for the grief process than to get out of your little nook that you've created for yourself. And we know Eugenia has a very well established nook. Get out of the house, go breathe some fresh air, go look at an ocean, I don't know, whatever. Just something that kind of breaks that wallowing, that grieving, the cyclic nature that can be the emotions of grief, and go be together. And although initially it feels so wrong to just start moving on with routine and start moving on with your emotions, to be able to celebrate the life that is still currently here and the life that was, that is the important thing, not just to mourn the end, if that makes sense. You pass one day of your life and you live how many? And in, for example, Buzz's situation, 13 years worth of days of living. It's important to remember that although it feels impossible when it first happens, it is still important to keep that in balance. How many days of love and life versus how many days of loss? It's worth keeping in perspective. Hard, but worth keeping in perspective.
And honestly, you guys, I'm still kind of in shock. Like, it happened, like, emo girly, hi, thank you so much for the love, I really appreciate it. But yeah, it happened like very late, like Monday night. It was just such a shock to me, and it's just kind of like still, I kind of don't like still even fully know like what to say or how to like I don't know, it's just so hard. It's like I still kind of just like can't believe it's like even real right now, you guys, honestly.
Yeah, so there's absolutely that level of shock. I just wanted to highlight here though, we're actually getting a glimpse of exactly how good Eugenia is at masking, because all the way through these lives, especially in the second live that I'm going to show you, there is still thanking gifters and subscribers and selling products, and to be able to just slip out of that grief mode and put that mask on in any capacity really shows how practiced she is at this. Do not mistake this for criticism. It's an observation that I think we get a glimpse into for her more quote unquote normal streams. There could be any manner of things happening in her life that we have absolutely no idea about. Any sort of trauma, any sort of situation happening, and I think because she's so practiced, she could get on here and convince us of anything. And unfortunately, I think that is coming off the back of doing this regardless of how she's feeling for years with a very serious condition, and who knows what else on top of that. So I just wanted to highlight that there.
It's kind of crazy. We just found out, actually, which is like one thing that we can at least like feel a little bit better about. But we kind of like read something about like the Rainbow Bridge and about how like dogs like, oh my gosh, Denise, the title gifter of the galaxies. Thank you so much, Denise. But yeah, we read something about like the rainbow. The dogs go over there and they're all happier, and over there, you know, they can all just like play together and laugh and be happy. And thank you guys, we tried to always give him the best life that we possibly could. Like, sometimes I'd read some really awful comments of people that assume like a lot of things.
Yes, I too have read those awful comments, and I don't know what it is about this kind of topic. It seems to bring out the worst in certain types of people. There's always going to be somebody, or there always seems to be somebody that says the wrong thing, even if they're trying to help. When I lost my first ever pet, and the first one is an interesting experience, I was not dealing very well with it. And I went back to work, and there was a woman at my work who had two very beautiful dogs. I've forgotten what breed they were now, but they were the kind of dogs that you would show. And she said to me, "Do you want one of them?" And I'm like, you know, 2 weeks fresh out of a very deep loss. And I said, "Oh, no, that's okay. Thank you, but no." And she said, "Well, they've been fighting, so if you don't take one, I'm gonna have to look at getting her put down." And I'm like, Did you literally just say that to me? Looking back, I think I was in such shock in the moment that I don't think I reacted how I would have liked to. But I just look back at that and I think, how do you even get into the mindset to think that that's an appropriate thing to say to somebody who is going through a loss? But I think from her mindset was, oh, missing pet, I can help. That way both of our situations can be resolved. I don't know. Anyway. But she's not a mean-natured person, just, I don't know, incredibly misguided in that moment. But there always seems to be one who manages to say the wrong thing, in my experience, at least one. But Eugenia is getting some pretty nasty comments. I'm not happy with what I'm seeing on her content either. But regarding the, going over the rainbow thing, I don't think it matters what you believe. I don't think it matters what your faith is or not faith or whatever the situation may be. I do think it's important that you can find something within your own heart and soul that gives you some solace, to put a positive spin on it, to find something where you can go, yes, that little being that I loved with my entire self is okay. And I like that they've found the rainbow thing. The rainbow thing doesn't really resonate with me, but that's fine. To find that thing that sits right with your brain. There's lots of theories out there. Some of them are incredibly touching. Personally, the one that I like the theory that time is not linear, and instead more like a river or a stream that is flowing through its environment and down its path. And as you progress through life and you have experiences, you're moving through this river of time. And just because you've gone downstream a little bit or rounded a corner doesn't mean that the previous spot you were just in doesn't exist anymore. And so in essence, somewhere in time, you are always eternally with that little being in that moment. And so I think about my dog waking me up by licking my nose. She's always doing that. Or I think about Miss Beyonce the chicken. Yes, Beyonce the chicken. She is somewhere eternally sitting on my shoulder and gently picking at my hair. And Miss Pink is doing this derpy little run towards me that is so unique to her with her little melodic voice. And so I get to have solace in the thought that, yeah, somewhere in some point in time, we are eternally doing that together. I don't know. Maybe it resonates with you, maybe it doesn't, but that's the one that I like and I like to think about. And something that I do like about that theory is it starts to take the focus away from thinking about what you've lost and focuses more on the good memories, the things that bring a smile to your face, the times that made those moments uniquely just between the two of you, if that makes sense. I would be interested to hear if any of you have any other theories or things that you like to think about with past loved ones. Yeah, let me know.
But it's like we loved him so much. We would bring him to the vet. We would try to do everything that we could for him. Whenever, there was a lot that sometimes people don't always know about, which is understandable. Obviously you guys aren't living with me.
So this is the kind of thing that I've brought criticism with Eugenia in her past videos, and I have no doubt will continue to. This kind of thing shouldn't be addressed. What she is addressing here are the negative comments, saying to people, you don't know what we've been through, you don't know what we've done, but we loved him and we did the right thing. This shouldn't even be addressed. It shouldn't be acknowledged. And it's not the topic, it's not the underlying statement, it's not what is being said or what isn't being said. It's just that it shouldn't be addressed at all. These people shouldn't be acknowledged who are bringing this kind of energy to her comment section or to her chat. Because at the end of the day, she knows what the relationship was with Buzz and her family. She knows what his health situation was. She knows how far they went for him. And realistically, nobody outside of that house has any insight into this except maybe the vet. So if you know that within yourself, why bother acknowledging it? Why even give it any attention or any energy at all? This is kind of like a private scenario with just her family that she's now, by acknowledging it, inviting outsiders into. It kind of boils down to those things like, well, you can either prove it or you can't. And if you can't prove it, then what's the point in even addressing it? But it's my 2 cents. I think it would be better for her family and her mental well-being if she just just pretend like they're not there. Don't acknowledge them in any way.
You know, and Buzz, like, I know he's watching over us. Oh yeah, you guys, sorry, my mind's been such a mess. Like, just Nikki, thank you so much for subscribing. But one thing is, like, you know, when we were going by our church that we did see, it just told me unstable connection again. But luckily it seems like you guys aren't saying it's unstable. Thank you, Momo. Aw, that Rosie is so cute. But we saw like a rainbow, actually. Oh my gosh, Gigi. Gigi, that is so perfect right now with the rainbow. Thank you. But we saw like a little bit of like a rainbow in the sky. Oh my gosh, and Blazy, thank you for the beautiful wings. Thank you, Blazy. We saw that like in the sky, and then we saw like a little star. It was like the only star that was still out. And my mom just like started crying right away, and she really believed in her heart. Oh my gosh, Momo, thank you. Oh, Momo, that's so sweet. Thank you, Katie. Thank you guys all so much. Thank you, Neil. But right away, my mom was just kind of like, that's Buzz. And she just started crying like right away. And she's like, he's giving us a sign.
So the way she's describing her mother here, and it's really difficult to say without having been there and witnessing it, but if we're just taking face value of the way Eugenia is portraying this, her mother's not sounding super stable around this loss. It sounds like it's really, really hitting her very hard. That, of course, leads you directly to the obvious in the room, right? It's seeming inevitable that she will be dealing with another loss relatively soon. There's no delicate way to put this, right? And I do wonder if there is an element of perhaps almost panic going on within her mother that this grief is about to be compounded. I don't know. Tell me what you think. I just, there's something about this. It could be the way Eugenia is telling it. It could be, you know, the actual state of affairs, but something about this just feels a little unbalanced in some way. But then again, maybe this is just how her mother's learned to cope with grief. Okay, so just so you don't all get whiplash, there's about to be a massive tone shift while we move into the next live stream. So this live stream was fairly long and it was jam-packed full of sales. So we're definitely going to be seeing a lot more of that element, whereas this live stream that we've just covered was more about addressing the Buzz situation. The next one is kind of more business as usual.
Hi, how are you? So yeah, you guys, I just got a whole new set of these, like I said. So I am so excited about that. Oh my gosh, Cynthia! Thank you for the Go Popular.
So see what I mean? Hence the warning. So I think if you're really, really familiar with Eugenia, you will see that she is a little bit flat here, but you can really see the energy trying to be ramped up. We're going to go back to sales. We're going to be an influencer. We're making money, basically, is what this stream is about.
My brain's been kind of like a mess this week, guys, with everything going on. But, you know, I just am trying to stay as positive as I can. I'm really grateful for the love. Guys, no, when I say, I just saw like some people's comments, like, Buzz, towards the very end of his life, you guys, we were trying, you know, he was seeing a lot of doctors. He was starting to be on some medications. We never would want to keep Buzz living in pain. Ever, okay? But we had that dog for 13 years. We loved that dog and we always will. And we were, oh my gosh, Heather, thank you for leveling up. Trust me, we loved that dog so much. And we always will. But I don't want to kind of be on here again today, you guys, just crying. And, you know, and I think most of you guys know that. So we're going to try to not pay too much attention to the trolls, but just some of the things that people will say.
So I just grabbed a screenshot of it. The comment that had come up was quoting her, not in pain anymore. Why would you keep him living if you knew he was in pain? And again, this is an example of it. This just shouldn't have been acknowledged. This person does not know what is going on. None of us know what is going on. We're not in that house. But I think the problem with Eugenia's situation is that people take into account how Eugenia has been raised and mothered and, you know, the treatment, and see her state of affairs and then assume that Deb is going to be treating the dog in the same kind of way. So Deb's credibility is already under question, which is, I think, a very logical thing to assume, but it doesn't necessarily mean a 1:1, you know, equivalent situation. And why I say Eugenia shouldn't be addressing this is because why bother? What is the point of her sitting there and going, we took him to the vet, we wouldn't have had him living if we knew he was in pain? And also, more to the point, if you are in a family crisis in that moment and decisions need to be made, unless you are standing there in that room with that bond, with that loved one, you don't know the decisions you're going to make. You don't know how far you're going to take things. You don't know necessarily exactly where the line is that you say, yeah, this is done. My husband and I sat and discussed this about Miss Pink. What it boiled down to is we felt that it seemed that she wasn't in any discomfort. There was no signs of pain that you would normally see in chickens when they experience pain. And Miss Pink was still fighting. She fought up until the last half an hour. She was just such a trooper. I have seen far less spirit in humans than in this tiny little package of a chicken. And so we made the call that so long as she's fighting, we're going to support her and we're going to fight with her. And that was a decision that we made as a family that we felt was the best decision for our little being. So for Eugenia to sit here and even entertain these kinds of things, it's just no good is going to come of it. They knew as a family what they had decided. They had a health care plan, it sounds like, with the vet, and that's where it stops.
And this is only like, oh my gosh, only like, I think $13, you guys. And it's really great. So it's a really great price. And you can get like super dramatic, voluminous lashes. You can really build it up. The brush is like super easy to use. Oh my gosh, Sunny! Sunny, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much with the bouquet.
She is so good at this. She's better at this than I am. I cannot hide my emotions as well. I think you guys can probably hear that I'm not as energetic as usual. To be able to just switch this on and off is a real practiced skill set, and I think she has mastered it. If I just took that clip that we just watched and showed you just that with no other context, I don't think you would actually pick up that anything was amiss. And this is pretty much indicative of what most of this live stream was about. It was just sales.
I know, you guys, like, I'm so sorry. I haven't even been reading chat that much. I'm so sorry. I've just been, like, so, like, I don't know. This week has been kind of a crazy one, and it's been, like, a lot. Oh my gosh, you guys are in the hot dogs today. Wow. It's funny. The other day, you guys were all about the burgers. I guess today is a hot dog kind of day, huh? Well, you guys, I don't know. Maybe we'll have to get some hot dogs for everybody soon. Like, I don't know.
I actually think she just handled that better than she normally does. So under even more trying circumstances, she's just, slapping down those haters. You know, I do come to the table from a relatively objective stance on Eugenia. I wouldn't consider myself a supporter, but I definitely wouldn't consider myself a hater either. But in my opinion, given the set of circumstances that are going on right now, that was perfection in a nutshell. I wish she brought that kind of fire to other aspects of her life. Clearly, there is strength in there. I wish it would be applied to the more pressing issue at hand.
You know, you guys, there's that, like life can honestly be like hard enough sometimes, and I'm not saying like, oh, you've got to be nice to me, like whatever, but it's like already, like, you know, I've witnessed like my dog passing this week, and it's just like, I know that's something that, you know, everyone goes through, like having a pet, but it's hard, you know, and it's just kind of like sometimes life is hard. Not just on me, but just on everybody, you guys, you know. I'm seeing my family sad. It's like, I hate that, you know. So it's just like sometimes I think it would be so much better just towards like everyone in general just being a little bit kinder sometimes.
So I found this clip interesting because the way she started it, it sounded like she was about to list multiple things. Like I've already witnessed my dog passing, and then it sounded like there was supposed to be more in the list than what just happened, and it makes me think that she actually did stop herself from perhaps divulging more that's happening behind the scenes than she intended to. But yeah, she is getting some pretty heinous comments in her comment section and in her chat about this particular topic. And now let's talk about, clearly she's grieving. Do you think the hiatus after this stream that has now been going on for almost 2 weeks at this point, probably 2 weeks by the time you're watching this, do we think that this is her going, you know what, the grief has hit me harder than I thought it was going to. I tried to go back to work, but I just can't, so I'm going to take some time off, which would be completely understandable. I did that myself. Or do you think that this is a hissy fit in response to being demonetized on TikTok, which we have historical evidence for her doing this in the past, and it always seems to happen without any word at all. She never addresses the demonetization. She doesn't say the reasons that it's happening, and she doesn't have to. It is her business. She can do with it what she wants. Here's where I am going to bring some criticism to the table. Eugenia knows that her viewers worry about her. They have legitimate reason to worry about her when she just goes missing with no word. They think the worst, they wonder about it, and they worry about her state of health. So I will always bring a little bit of criticism to the table for that. Not that she needs to divulge a great deal of information, but just a quick little, you know, hey, I'm okay, I'm just taking some time off on Instagram, or just on the community tab on YouTube, whatever, just something that just kind of acknowledges, I'm fine, I know you've noticed I'm missing, I'll be back. And I got to thinking, because I am probably leaning towards the fact that it's a little bit of both as to why she's not back, but I do think most of it is the demonetization. And like I said, we don't know exactly how far that demonetization goes, or if it's temporary, or if it's going to continue to be that way. I did see some people talking, and I just haven't been able to verify it myself. I looked everywhere for the clip, so please let me know if you have or know where it is, what I'm about to describe. Apparently, Eugenia went into one of Jeffrey's live streams and mentioned that she's been demonetized. And he was then mocking her, saying that he's now lost his title gifter because, you know, in true Jeffrey form, I think that is a plausible scenario that could have happened. It also looks like he's been distancing himself from her a little bit lately, so I would be interested to know if anybody has that receipt. I would love to know. But it got me thinking, if it is a demonetization thing that is causing her to be missing from her job, on the one hand, I think it would be safe to say you wouldn't turn up to your job and work for free, would you? You wouldn't. If the pay stopped, the work would stop. That makes sense. And I think when you're speaking from a perspective that this is Eugenia's job, that does make sense. However, if you were a business owner, you might work for free. You might do what needs to be done to maintain momentum, or to build it up, or to invest time in something that will benefit the business in the long run. At which point, as an individual business owner, you probably do a lot of hours that aren't paid because it's in your greater interests to look after that. Now, since this is Eugenia's business, her business is technically herself in this, the product is her. So I feel like an argument could be made either way. You could go, yeah, we don't expect her to work for free. Or do we say, well, she constantly says all the time how much she cares about her viewers and how much she appreciates them, but then she won't say hello to them even briefly to let them know she's okay, or to even let them know that they matter. And this is where it can come off a little bit manipulative, because we do observe that when she goes missing for long periods of time, all of her views skyrocket, and that's not a coincidence. Of course, she would notice that as well. I don't know. Tell me where you come down on that. I think from my own personal stance, if it were my own business, I would still want to be in communication with my viewers. But just because that's an ethical line for myself or a moral line for myself doesn't necessarily mean that I can put that on Eugenia, if that makes sense. Okay, so talking about grief. I just wanted to take a moment to share my thoughts on this, since unfortunately I am well practiced in this arena. And just in case there's somebody here that needs to hear it, maybe you're going through it at the moment, maybe you're anticipating it, maybe you've never gone through it before and are freaking out about it. And I laugh because that was me before I had experienced it. The thought of losing someone important to you can be very, very intimidating. While I don't think that there is a right or wrong way to do it, this is how I think about grief. And just one thing to keep in mind that I believe is important to move through the process. So I think of grief as a direct balance of an outlet of how much you loved that being, the one that is lost. And however much love was there in life, it is an equal and opposite reaction of grief. And so in a way, if you're experiencing some serious grief, if you're experiencing that pain in your gut or in your heart, wherever you feel it, that is almost a credit to how much love there was. And in a sense, can almost be thought of like the debt that must be paid. And it is a debt that must and will be paid. And why I say that is because if you were to think about it as, say, an actual debt, like a monetary debt, if you opted or wanted to put it on pause and not deal with it right now, the debt will still be there. It will not get smaller. It's just on pause. And it has a nasty little way of having compounding interest. So the longer that it is unpaid, the larger it will grow. And I've witnessed this many times in my life with people where the thought of the pain or the grief in and of itself is too much to bear, that people start to seek to numb it. And the problem is when you start to numb it, you're not dealing with it. You're not paying that debt, and it grows and it festers and it gets so much worse than if you had have just faced it straight up. And although especially in the first few days, it can be very, very intense and it can be very painful, it is so important. And this is my one rule for dealing with grief. Face it, accept it. Accept that you're going to be uncomfortable, you're going to be in pain for a little bit. Accept that there's going to be tears, accept that there's going to be a loss of appetite. It's just accept that this is going to be something that happens. And in the acceptance of going through it and allowing yourself to let it out when it comes, because it's not like a situation where you're either grieving or you're not. It's kind of like through each day, sometimes through each hour, there can be ups and downs or distractions or focuses, and it can really shift and move. And although for example, I'm a week into my situation, today has been a particularly bad day. Yesterday was better. And tomorrow might be better again. But the acceptance of being able to go through it is what allows us to move through the stages. And whether you subscribe to the 5 stages of grief or whatever, all of that stuff is kind of irrelevant so long as you just allow yourself to experience these feelings that are in a direct result of all of that love that you had and still have. In essence, it's kind of like all that love has nowhere to go, in a way. So you have to let it out. And it's not an injustice if you find yourself laughing at something in that time. It's not an injustice to the little being that you lost. It's just your brain attempting to move through things at the best it can. Like I've mentioned, that sense of the world moving on without fully acknowledging this thing that's been lost can be really, really difficult. But again, accept it. Look at it, go, yep, okay, this is how I'm feeling. Accept it and move through it. Allow it to wash over you and ensure that you do all of the things that your body still needs you to do, like exercise, sleep, hydrate, eat. And I promise you, you might be surprised how much better each day can feel when you follow that process. And that's what I mean when I say that I am unfortunately practiced at the skill of grief, because I've lost a lot of pets, family members, friends, in all different scenarios, sometimes after very protracted illnesses that had the certain outcome, sometimes literally overnight, sometimes really young, sometimes really old, sometimes natural causes, and sometimes very not natural causes. And I almost feel more comfortable with this side of things rather than the before anything happens and it's like, are we doing enough? Is this going to work? And, you know, that kind of upheaval of not knowing, I find a lot more difficult to deal with rather than the actual grief itself. It's like, this is going to be the same pattern as always. I will get past it. It will feel better eventually, just not right now. One more piece of advice that I have to give. If you are listening and you're looking at your very first pet right now, you're looking at them and they're giving you those eyes, and maybe you had childhood pets, but maybe this is your first adult pet and the bond is different. And if you were like me, tell me if I'm being relatable right now. When I had my first pet, I was freaking out about what was going to happen when this pet finally passes, because the correct order of nature is that you are probably going to outlive your pet. If that sensation is filling you with dread, if you're willing to share, can you tell me if that's you right now? I'm talking directly to you. Here's my advice. Because I had a Papillon cross Chihuahua. She was my first ever adult pet. And she was my world. She was my girl. And she lived a good long life. She lived until 16, which is fantastic. But she was very old and she was getting a little bit blind and a little bit standing in corners. You know what I mean? If you've had an old dog. When she hit 7, I started freaking out about what was going to happen because she was getting old and all of a sudden they were calling her geriatric at the vet. I don't know what that's about, but I started just living with this dread and panic about what was going to happen and how I was going to cope with her eventual loss, that I then spent the next 9 years in that state of just worrying about it. And if this is resonating with you at all, see if you can try and train yourself, and it is a practiced skill, to stay in the moment with them. Because what happened was, for most of her life, think about that, most of her life, I was worrying about the day that she was going to pass, that single day. And it caused me to not enjoy her as much as I should have in the moment while I had her. And I deeply regret that. And it's something that I really get a lot out of my chickens with, because I'm very present with them. It's about them in this moment, in their life right now, not what might be down the track, especially with chickens, because they do not live as long as dogs. So if that helps anybody, I really, really hope it does. I don't think it's just me that was thinking that way, and I have a feeling that it might resonate with somebody else. It's not just pets. Enjoy everybody, all of those loved ones around you in the moment that they're in right now. The future's never guaranteed, but it is a gift. Okay. I think I've covered everything that I want to cover. I actually feel a little bit better after doing this video, so hopefully all of my nuggets do as well. This, I'm not going to lie, did take a few takes to get through, but this is all just part of what it is to live and to love. And I almost feel like if we experience this kind of loss and this kind of pain, to turn around and say, I am shutting myself off from anything else and I don't want to experience it again, is almost a disservice to the being that was lost. And I'm not speaking about you, this is just for me. It's almost like saying your life wasn't worth the pain that I went through in my mind. And that's why I have 15 other little faces out there looking at me. And even though I know that I'm realistically going to go through this at least another 15 times, because let's be honest, nuggets, I'm going to get more chickens at some point. Even though I know that that's going to happen, it's still worth it. So if you're still here listening to me after all that rambling, thank you so, so, so much. I appreciate each and every one of you. And that's all the clucks I have left to give today. Stay golden, my little nuggets, and I'll catch you next time.
Hey, 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 hey! I'm gonna go watch another video. Let's go!